gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us for yet again another episode of the Hustlemode podcast. If you're new to this channel, welcome. If you have us between your ears, welcome, welcome. We value your precious time and we're grateful for you to be able to be a part of this discussion that we're having today. For those of you who do not recognize my voice, my name is Neil Prasad. I'm the co-host and co-founder of the Hustlemode podcast. I'm joined today by my guest and cohort, Jason Rule. Jason?
Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us. We're excited to be here, excited to talk to you.
It is Monday, May 17th, and in traditional form, we tackle these topics on an evening when it's nice and quiet at home. All the kids are in their bed, at least on my end. Jay's kids are still running about doing things or even working from time to time, so we don't know what's up. But
one's at work, one's out somewhere in the car, so she'll be back eventually.
And we're ready to engage. And today's topic is an interesting one. And there's a couple of gurus that I refer to in this space. Marty Neumeyer, Chris Dew, Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk. And basically, let's start with a quote. So a brand for a company is like a reputation for a person. You earn reputation by trying to do the hard things well. And that's one of them that I refer to from time to time. That was by our friend, Mr. Amazon.
Mr. Jeff Bezos.
Jeff Bezos. And the other one, it takes 20 years to build a reputation and 5 minutes to ruin it. And if you think about that, you'll do things differently. And that's our Mr. Warren Buffett. So, brand, we were chatting before about personal branding as an organization. I think what we're going to do is we're going to talk everything branding. And then I would like to actually delve a little bit more into the personal side of things as far as a personal brand is concerned.
That's a good idea.
Why don't we start by identifying like what is branding?
I'll take a stab at that. So for me, what branding is, and we talked about this before, is branding and reputation to me are interchangeable. They're connected. So how I brand myself is how I build my reputation in the business space, but not only in the business space, but in the personal space as well. So, you have personal brand that is also tied to your professional brand. And those two things are interchangeable. That's why you're seeing, and you can top up on these. That's why you have social media as it relates to your LinkedIn, your Instagram, your Facebook, your TikTok, and some of the other platforms that are out there, Snapchat. All these things contribute to an overall personal brand of an individual. And employers now, and I don't know if this is something you've heard, but I'm hearing that employers now will use some of these personal brand locations or activities to check out a candidate. Like I know when I'm trying to understand who I'm working with, some of their skills, their understanding of the topics that I'm talking about, or just a general precursor to meeting that individual. I'm LinkedIn, I'm Facebook, I'm Instagram. I'm checking out their personal brand and how they represent themselves, both professionally and personally. And I'm using that almost as a way to formulate an opinion on the person before I even met them, or before I even meet them. So I don't know, good or bad. I think that's the mentality that a lot of people have when talking about personal brand, talking about professional brand, is you build them in order to give people a preview of who you are coming in. Not to prejudge, but to also inform and to give people a good lens on who they're dealing with. I don't know if that answers the question.
Yeah, no, that's I think what you said earlier really makes this whole topic crystal clear. And basically, your brand, your personal brand is literally your reputation, right?
Yeah.
Marty Neumeyer. Do you know who Marty Neumeyer is?
I do not.
He's a brand guru. New York number one bestseller. He wrote a bunch of books talking about branding. He puts on and I'll list them in the description. There's just so many that he's published. But he's been in the game since 70s, bro. He is an
70s.
when it comes to
So,
branding.
has he changed his opinion on brand over the years?
No, no,
No.
he's
Hmm.
like, he'll tell you like his brand. I mean, I'm sure he has. I don't know him personally, so obviously, your perspective shifts based on sort of the trends or what's happening in the
Yeah.
ecosystem. Like his forethought is really, it's table stakes, right? It's like a
Mhm.
brand is not a logo, a brand is not an identity, a brand is not a product. He goes to say like a brand is a person's gut feeling about a product, service, or organization, right?
Hmm.
He's teaching, like chief branding officers and CMOs about brands. Like he's got a C-level academy that he hosts in the UK, in North America. He
Hmm.
first started way back and moved across the US into Silicon Valley and started producing or branding software packaging. And he went to other software packagers or software companies and said, "That's all I do is software packaging."
Yeah.
Meanwhile, never done it. So he kind of created the mold, man, as far as niching and then being super specific and honing in on that particular brand and what it means to represent that vertical or sector
Yeah.
within the industry at large, right? So it's an art and a science. But one thing that you need to
Yeah.
be mindful of, and like you said, in this digital age, is
Mhm.
taking a closer look at the personal branding and what you're putting out there, right?
Yeah.
On on Instagram, on Facebook, right? Like it's no longer the confines of these things being sort of limited to selected individuals. Like absolutely, I mean, there's ways to skew it and inviting people in and blocking or hiding certain things of it being shown for your community that you're creating.
Yeah.
There's different filters that you can select to make sure that it's only close friends that's viewing certain things and so on and so forth. But who's to say that people aren't necessarily sharing that or downloading it or screen grabbing it and sharing it on another chat platform, for example, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Just know.
Well, you can like from the thing that I always look at when you're talking about brand, and I think, and we'll talk about it, or we can talk about it, is the difference between the corporate brand, like for example, all those studies they always release about the top 100 brands in the world, or the top 5 brands in the world. You have your, was it like Apple, McDonald's, like there's a list of the top brands.
That's what
At Yeah, exactly. Um, oh, you're having a hard time hearing you. I don't know if you're. Oh, there you go. You're far away. Come closer, closer to the light. Um, you're trying. So yeah. So when I look at brand, I look at, is it the brand that your product is, or is it the brand that you are? And I think for today's discussion, focusing on the personal brand, I think is going to be of high value to our audience. So can you, from a marketer and a digital whiz perspective, really talk about, if you, let's say you're a young cat, you're coming up in the world, you're developing some content, you maybe have some good material, you're active on Snapchat, but you want to get yourself a professional presence in the brand space. Like what would you say are some initial things that a young person who wants to brand themselves better should look at as it relates to the professional world? Like what would be your top 3 or top 5 things that a person would want to do to enhance, improve, develop, build, whatever you want to say, their brand? What do you think?
I think take a look at what you're putting out there, right, and how you're being represented. A
Yeah.
lot of people comment on sort of my attire
So
from
personal appearance. Yeah.
from yesteryear even up to today, right? And
Hmm.
it's something that I was just, you know, it's been ingrained in me from a very young age. It's just, you look the part, right? There's something about a clean shirt and clean pants. And my grandfather once told me, he's like, you never get a second chance to make a first impression, right? But you
Yeah.
can always be overdressed. And you can always dress down when you're overdressed, but you can't dress up. You know what I mean? So if
Like,
you're
what do you mean?
well, I mean, if you're underdressed, you can never make that dressier, right? If
Oh,
I'm
I see what you're saying.
not wearing a three-piece suit, I can ditch the jacket, and now I got a shirt with a vest on, right? And I'm dressed down, or I'm unbuttoned. You know what I mean? If I got a
Yeah,
tie,
yeah,
I can toss the tie, unbutton the shirt, lose the jacket, and I'm biz casual all of a sudden. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah,
Well, you want to make sure that you're comfortable in who you are as a person. I think authenticity has a big role to play in how we're developing our
yeah.
person. And I think you really need to look at. I'm not saying that your brand can't shift or alter as you progress in life, but you have to be mindful of how you are representing yourself, right?
Oh,
So
authenticity. Okay.
yeah, I like to look at it as though you're being consistent, right? So let's say,
Mhm.
for example, if you look at my LinkedIn profile, Instagram, Facebook, I guess Facebook is going to be the one thing that's going to be a little bit slightly different, but all my profile pics across any platform are usually the same. Because if somebody's coming to know me on one platform, then I want that continuity when they're coming to another platform to take a closer look at who I am if they're searching for, right?
Mhm.
And then it makes life a lot easier too, because then it's just one image that you're sort of tweaking or adjusting to capture and crop just right.
Yep.
But on Facebook, it's a little bit different because I have a lot more family that's on there. So it's an image of me and my kids, right? Which is
Yeah.
cool there. And I
Okay.
don't
So
really Facebook for a lot of business
yeah.
initiatives. It's more an extension of what's happening. So image, attire. I think those are
Yeah.
two. I think dialect or language, right?
Like
And
your choice of words, you mean? Like how you
absolutely,
speak, the ums and the ahs and the buts and the ahs and the all that stuff? Are you talking about just that type of thing? Or are we talking about the choice of words?
I
How you
think it's both.
speak?
I think it's both, right?
Both?
Like
Okay.
it really depends. Like today's media-rich platforms allow you an opportunity to record, be recorded, whether it be audio or video, and then the written word, right?
Yep.
So if you're used to texting and writing slang on this little device here, like
Yeah.
sure that
Yeah.
that's not being cross pollinated into, let's say, a blog post or an article that you're writing on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And I mean, unless that's your brand, right? And that's okay too, right? Like you and I are talking professionally, but I think the over the years, the gray area as far as professional and what's acceptable, yesteryear, if you had some guy that was fully sleeved with two tattoos all up and down his arm, you wouldn't give him a second look, right?
Yeah.
Now you got creatives that are comfortable in their own skin, and have the CV to back it up, and that's acceptable for the creative environment that they're in. Um,
Yeah. I agree.
they may not be client facing, or maybe they are, but that person can very well, articulate what.
Well, I think when just to click into that, when you do see somebody who has a very eccentric way of expressing themselves or eccentric way of representing themselves as a personal brand, you almost look at it as something where their level of confidence and their level of not giving a f about things is significantly higher than maybe a run-of-the-mill person. It takes a commitment to go down that road of getting yourself all tatted up and having that high level of expression, maybe more so than the person down the street who's just a regular run of the mill Joe or Jane, to take that definitive personal risk to create yourself as almost your brand. Like your brand isn't just how you speak, how what your appearance is, or sorry, how you speak, how you carry yourself. It's how you look sometimes, right? And some people make a very distinctive choice to make themselves visible, their brand visible, and what you see is maybe not what you're going to get sometimes. Like you see people and you're like, oh, first impression, they're a little they look a little rough around the edges, but when you have a conversation, you're like, oh man, this person's a game changer. This person is on point. They really know what they're talking about. They're impressive as any other person I've spoken to in this space. Like their expertise levels, like way above the run of the mill individual. So that's the thing that, to me, from a branding perspective, like you said, a few of the things you mentioned about appearance and stuff like that, sometimes that throws you off. Like appearance can be a complete curveball. Like you're expecting one thing and you get something completely different. right? So, again, so those are the, so what were you saying again? You said personal appearance, how you speak, your authenticity, and your consistency. What else do you got from a personal branding kind of tips and ways to
Yeah,
address?
it's going a little bit deeper into the niche that you're involved with, right? So the
Mhm,
vertical, making sure that you're consistently speaking the same message, so to
mhm,
speak. You don't want to be, and again, everything is with a grain of salt, right? But like, let's say if you're using certain channels to stimulate business growth or to become a thought leader in a certain space, you want to make sure that everything is connected to some degree. There's not too many separation from your brand and
mhm.
or from the content that you're putting out, because otherwise you're confusing your audience. Does that make sense?
So you're talking about like just having,
Excuse
oh,
me.
bless you. So you're saying like a focused approach to your brand identity. Is that
I
kind
mean, like,
of,
for example, I speak about all things digital marketing, branding, online advertising, and such. And,
yeah,
if all of a sudden I start talking about the latest,
Bitcoin or something?
latest and greatest in Barbies, right? And
Yeah.
this new line of toys that are coming out, it's completely left field, unless I'm tying it into how the brand and or market share for that particular toy company is chipping away at others in that space that have already created a monopoly, right? There's
Yeah.
something correlated with, right? But if I just start talking about the toys and how great it is, and it's it's a it's an
So
excellent purchase, it's
So
kind
you
of like,
think there's value in staying on message? Is that kind of where you're going? Because to me,
because
that's kind of what I get is that,
yeah,
you're with your brand representation and who you are and what you do, you're staying very much um,
you got
key
it.
to your narrative, right? You're staying on message. That's kind of one of those things when you're speaking or when you're having a conversation with somebody, you're staying very much on message. So, okay. So that's one on message. Okay. So I like that. So we got authenticity, how you speak, personal appearance, staying on message. What would you say the last component of building, maintaining, cultivating a personal brand would be, in your opinion?
I think there's a couple more. One would be like looking at the defining the problem, right?
Mhm.
So identify with the problem that you solve, and have that content provide insight. Edutainment is what I like to call it, right? You're educating, but you're still entertaining. And what I mean by that is, like,
Mhm.
I'm, there's so many, and they might get some backlash for this, but people don't read anymore. They skim,
Mhm.
right? Like
Yeah.
they're headline readers, and they skim maybe one or two sentences in
Mhm.
a, and they move on, right? TLDR, right? Too long, did not read. You know what I mean? So it's like, yeah, I need to make sure that the time that you spend with people is concise, it's to the point, it's accurate, and then leave them with something that they can research later if they wanted to delve
Mhm.
a little bit further into it, right? And then you want to make sure that you're amplifying that problem, right? So,
Yeah.
you know, making solving the problem and amplifying it are two different things, right? And by amplifying it, the you're creating the journey for the ideal client or customer to come follow you because they can resonate with that issue, and
Mhm.
that you're by you providing content that can solve that. Hopefully there's a hook there that allows you to entertain.
Okay. So delivery of message, and you're saying to do it in an engaging way. So just trying to be more engaging as it relates to your messaging of your brand and also your personal interaction with people. Just trying to be more engaging in what you're talking about and trying to hold people's attention. I think that's the last one. You say, yeah. Okay. So personal appearance, authenticity, how you speak, how you carry yourself, the staying on message, and how you deliver that message with engagement. So that's what we got for our personal branding starter kit, if you want to call it that. If you're able to do those things, people in the audience, definitely as you start to build your personal brands and start to put yourself in more places and talk to more people, these are some of the key things, from Neil's experience that I think would resonate very well. So going beyond personal brand, Neil, and just really looking at how your personal brand starts to bleed into that professional brand. So of those points, is there anything that pertains just to business, or would you keep the same set of personal branding tips or ideas that are business centric only? Like one thing that you don't really do in your everyday life from a personal branding perspective is networking. Like you network in your everyday life, but you don't go out to network with your neighbors. You go out to talk to your neighbors, to socialize, right? I don't know if networking and socialize are intertwined, or if they're different in business and different in personal. What's your opinion on
Yeah. So
business
anything that I'm
brand?
referring to with respect to personal brand
Yeah.
resonates from the core for business. Okay,
Okay.
I'm not talking about us personally at all. This is all business related.
Hmm.
uh, how to personally brand yourself um, for a business, right? Professionally.
Okay. So
Because
professional.
profession, it's important for individuals. If you think you don't have a personal brand,
Mhm.
go ask your past employer, coworkers that you work with, and or
Like
individuals that
customers.
you just recently met, right?
Yeah.
And they'll all have a perception of you, and you can very easily find your common thread. Now, if you want to blur the waters a little bit, you can do a sample test and ask, friends and family about what their thoughts or perceived thoughts are about you, and maybe ask them to give you a top 10 list about what their thoughts are on you professionally speaking.
Yeah.
If you want to see if that sort of resonates with who you are as your core, is how you see yourself, right?
That's an important one. How you see yourself and how others see you are sometimes drastically different. And but how does one get that audit though? Um, that's a pretty steep slope sometimes to go down to approach family member, close friend, acquaintance, and say, what do you think of the way that I brand and carry myself? Because or do you even ask it in so many terms where you're asking them outwardly, what do you think of me? Like that's a tough one. Or do you go about it a different way, like seek
Um,
feedback basically? Like what's your opinion?
why do you say it's a tough one? Just curious.
Well, I guess maybe it's more from a personal perspective. Like I haven't really done that self audit where I go ask people. So, I just met you, or I've known you for about 6 months now. What do you think of me? Like, what would you give me feedback wise to improve myself? And are you looking for, self help, self actualization type of feedback, or are you just looking for business feedback on how you approached and work with them? Are you looking for a testimonial? Or are you looking for life guidance? Like it's to me, and again,
Again,
maybe I'm not
everything,
familiar with that.
everything, everything I do is business related, my friend. You know what I mean?
Mm,
So I don't want to say that like everything I do. I'm saying like in the context of how we're having this conversation right now, it's
mm,
all formulated around business. Now, if you need to be self-aware and take a closer look at professional development or personal development,
mm,
figuring out exactly how that can sort of level up or layer in to create more of a holistic Jason, for example,
mm.
and we're using you as an example, right?
Yeah,
And that's a different question, right? But I'm very comfortable on doing both. You know, it's always great to get feedback. Constructive criticism is the greatest thing ever, right? Because it allows you to identify your weaknesses and take a closer look at where you can improve. And you know, opinions. You know what they say about opinions, right? So
yes,
we won't go there, but it's like everyone's got one. Okay, so you have to be
hmm,
who you're asking and take it with a grain of salt. But it's a good gut check. Figure out exactly,
yeah,
ask people in your network that you feel comfortable with, and don't ask them to do it, to stroke your ego. But it's more or less like, hey, listen, are you consuming some of the content? Or I saw that you liked this post that I did the other day. What was it that actually resonated with you? Or were you just scrolling and you wanted to give me a like because you thought that would be going to boost my day? Like, I don't get it.
yeah,
So you have those connections with certain individuals that allow you to gain perspective or insight, right?
yeah,
Um, feel free to challenge them, right? And I mean that in a way that will add not only to your relationship but also
yeah.
to you both personally and professionally. Does that make
Constructive. Yeah, no, that makes complete sense. Like I think you have to be very comfortable and very willing to hear the good with the bad. And I think you have to be aware of the person you're asking for said feedback as well. Again, like you said, you trust that people you've brought into your network will give you truthful and constructive feedback, but sometimes they may just give emotional feedback on how they feel about a certain thing that you've done or that you do, or the way you carry yourself. So you definitely have to be careful. It's that whole putting yourself out there argument conversation, that if you do, you have to be willing to take the lumps that come back and understand maybe some of the criticism isn't what you want to hear, or something that you're not comfortable going down the road to fix, right? You just want to kind of sweep it under the carpet and move on. So, that's that whole authenticity slash tough love conversation that, is really hard to have, not only from a business perspective, but from a personal perspective. Like the business perspective stuff, I think is not as contentious, like where you ask somebody for feedback on some content that you've developed, or, a video that you've put online, or something that you got made. People will give you feedback because you detach it from your existence. Whereas if it's personal, how do you detach it, right?
I mean,
Sometimes,
maybe sometimes, like I say this
maybe.
often, right? Business is personal, right? A lot of people say don't take it personally, it's just business. But business is very personal, my friend,
Oh, for
right?
sure.
And if you
Hmm. That is the first.
there you are.
Oh, there you are. You froze for a second. Now you're
Yeah.
back.
Okay.
Oh,
I don't know
internet connection is unstable. Got some firsts happening here on the technology side. Anyways, you were saying business is personal. Personal is business.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, I've done that from time to time. I've done a gut check. I've
Hmm.
asked some people for feedback as far as what they thought, and I've even asked clients, right? I've even asked past clients that were no longer a client, and it's all about how you ask. So you're not asking
I
in
agree
this,
with that.
hey, it's I'm looking to improve my personal brand. I need some feedback from you on no, like it just you are yourself, you're comfortable in your own skin, and depending on how you formulate that question or questions will
Yeah.
be
Oh, you just paused again, Neil. There you go. You're back again.
yeah.
Yeah.
It,
That was,
my internet's good, man. So
I I'd like to say the same thing, but
if you
we'll
think,
see on the playback whose internet's giving the problems. Anyways, so yeah, I guess to your point though, having that, getting feedback from clients, and whether they're clients or their acquaintances or whomever, is important. I don't think we seek feedback enough. Whether it as men or as business people, we don't seek feedback enough, because that whole feedback loop is what hopefully improves your execution as new things come into your world, or new ideas or new concepts or new businesses come to you. It's that feedback loop that gives you the strength to try new things, fail, reemerge, do different, better things. Without feedback, we're all just floundering, not necessarily getting any traction in anything, right? And people are lying to us that the idea we have is the greatest thing that they've ever heard, which in reality is probably the worst thing that you could ever possibly do. So, you get feedback saves you a lot of times from yourself, and it gives you the right direction that you need to be successful, right? Feedback is key, as they say.
yeah, absolutely.
So,
So on that front, like, are you following anyone, or like have you delved? Are you undergoing a personal branding exercise of some sort?
personally, no. I'm trying to right now work on the branding of the business. But I guess now let me back up a bit. So to answer your question, yes, part of what we're doing in Hustle Mode is we're trying to speak to people that want to either understand what we are about, or to try to build those relationships with people that we haven't even met, or people that are interested in the content, or that want to have further conversations with us about different things. So yeah, it's definitely a resurgence of brand for me. Again, I'm not a huge social media posting guy, but we're creating hours of content that we can reuse, or that we can put out there as a part of understanding us. So to my point way earlier about you want to learn about Jason, you want to learn about doing business with him or with his company, and how he carries himself, and how he can speak to customers, speak to business partners, speak to investors, etc. You find the Hustlemode podcast, and you take a listen at how Jason and Neil interact with one another, and how much understanding I have of the businesses that I run, and how much understanding I have about business in general, or the personal brand that I represent. So, you know, I believe, yeah, that there's um, a redevelopment of personal brand, because I think going further into the business that we're in, there needs to be more velocity, more volume, more activity, and having a good brand helps drive those things. So I don't know. That's my answer. I don't know about you, but is Neil Prasad going through a brand renaissance, or are you just building on the
I
reputation and brand you already have?
personal brand is continuously evolving,
Mm,
and I say that because the the social channels or social media channels that are being introduced to us on
mhm,
on an ongoing basis are all different and similar to some degree, but are all
mm.
different in a different in some aspect, some slight nuance. So May 17th, I guess, got my little invite from Clubhouse. I'm very, very happy that I'm finally able to play in that sandbox. I
Yes,
haven't
welcome. We've been waiting
jumped
for you.
right in, but as an Android user, I was kept at bay for quite some time.
Mhm.
Um, but that in itself is a resurgence of personal branding, right? I can't have
It's a new opportunity.
I can't have the same mentality, thought process on how I go about positioning myself or creating a bio or a profile there to some degree with the same way I would attack Facebook, for example, right?
Yeah.
It's a different environment. It's a different ecosystem. So, I think as more social media channels come on or come involved into our lives and available to us, I think it's important for you or for everyone to take a closer look at how their brand is being introduced into that environment,
Okay. I see what you're saying.
right?
Yeah. How you're leveraging these new emerging platforms. Again, you have to, and that what we were talking about before we start recording, is that you got to have a strategy, or a little bit of a game plan, right? Just to know how you're going to maximize and spend your time, and where you're going to play. I think that's one of my early regrets as it relates to Clubhouse, is the fact that I didn't have a strategy. Even to this point now, I don't have a strategy on really how to get involved in the addressable market that exists within. I have spoken on some stages. I have been modded up, as they say, on a few different occasions as it relates to Internet of Things topics. I was on a real estate one a couple months back when I first started going on Clubhouse. And the Internet of Things one, I was actually one of the primary speakers talking about the specific topic of how to connect your business to the internet using IoT services. And got into a good discussion with, I think the room got as big as like 150 people, which, for me was a great audience. To talk about what iLeague does, and what we have in Canada. But, I had a few people reach out to me, and a few different people want to have additional conversations, and I met some interesting people in the room. But like with everything, Neil, it's not so much the connection, it's the follow up. That's where the magic is. That's where the gold is. So I didn't leverage those opportunities to the full extent.
Yeah,
So,
but at the same point in time, not every opportunity needs to be leveraged, right? Not everything is a sale, right?
no,
Um,
by no means.
and I think by you positioning yourself as an expert or at least someone that's knowledgeable about certain
Thought
topics,
leader, whatever.
then at least it's an extension of your personal brand, right? So whether it's
I
LinkedIn
agree.
connections, whether it's individuals that may be opening the door, whether it's other thought leaders that may come back to you for a discussion. And we can talk about this offline as far as the execution and how the sequence can be set up so that there's a proper cadence as to when you host, when you participate, and how you execute on those various extensions to take an online correspondence to an offline discussion,
Yeah,
and what
agreed.
that sequence is after the fact, right? But
Yep,
that's for another chat,
it's for
sideline chat.
another time.
But
Yeah.
yeah, no, I agree. Like it's just it's a great way for you, and it's free, and I'm just excited to establish my personal brand on that front
Yeah.
for sure.
Just don't spend too much time on it though. It becomes one of those situations where you can have it on for 3 to 4 hours in a day. Not to say you'll be engaging with it, but again, it can be overwhelming when you first get going because the engagement is high initially because the conversations you're hearing involved in, you're like, oh yeah, this is great. You should be taking notes, but you're really understanding what people are talking about. And you got to think of it this way as well. You don't take every piece of advice you receive to heart and apply it immediately. But if you are able to apply it to what you're maybe already looking at or fill in a gap that you may have. So for example, if you're looking at, buying a triplex, like a lot of these folks in the US are talking about on this application, on this app, well, it's not the same where you're from, right? The opportunities aren't the same. The prices of housing and the prices of interest rates are not the same. So there's always pieces and gaps you need to fill in from this great advice and this great oversight that people are giving out for free. Be careful of the lure of signing up for free online coaching that lead to other coaching opportunities, which lead to a master class, which lead to 50 to 20 emails a day. So there are traps and there are things that you need to be weary of as it relates to Clubhouse. But you'll learn that. And if our audience is not already on Clubhouse and you need a Clubhouse invite, hit me up. I got a couple left, and we'll get you on the application. But in terms of maximizing it, you can.
Yeah, I think it's like any other channel, right?
Yeah.
So I'm on the sidelines right now, socially listening to figure out exactly the nuances and how I can be able to exchange. I haven't necessarily
Toes in the water, toes in the water, and then you jump in.
walk before you run, right? So
You got it.
yeah, no, I'm excited. I'm excited for that, and I'm excited for you to be hosting a room in the near future and figure out exactly how we navigate those discussions, and exactly how you can further extend that personal brand for iLeague and Jason Rowe.
Yeah, looking forward to it. Looking forward to it.
So, without any further ado, it's been about half an hour here, guys. And if you've got some value and you're still with us, that means that you're enjoying the conversation. Be sure to smash that like button, hit the subscribe, and ring that notification bell if you haven't already done so. We usually drop a podcast, or an episode every Monday at 10 a.m. So if you do subscribe, it'll come right into your consumption of choice, whether that be through video or through audio. We're still fine tuning some of the channels that we're going to be able to get on.
Yep.
Still scratching the surface on how to navigate through the the Apple podcasts. So there's a little RSS things that need to be connected, but that's on the technical side of things. But head over to Spotify, Google Podcasts. Those are the primaries that you'll be able to find us on. Or if your subscription based on podcasts is through Anchor, then you'll be able to locate us there. Just search for Hustlemode Podcast.
There
Jay,
you
any
go.
closing remarks for the people here?
No, no. I think it's unfortunate that we sometimes look at personal brand as people bragging or flossing, as they say, about themselves and things they've done and places they've been and stuff like that. But a lot of these things that are surrounding that really contribute to who a person is and how they want to carry themselves. So personal branding, when you look at how you want to represent and how you want to present yourself, should really just be very personal and how you want to really have the world view you and how you want to carry yourself going forward. So for me, personal branding is very much about trying to show the world what value you bring and how they can interact with you, and the overall excitement of being part of your or part of their world can really bring. So as we go on, as we proceed, I'm excited to build my personal brand around the stuff that we're doing now and things that are coming in the future. So those are my final words. Anything to add?
Yeah, for sure. And just to sort of amplify that, again, it's more or less like, authenticity, consistency, um, education, um, you know, again, like value add, right? Vaynerchuk says, give, jab, 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 right hook, right? So it's just give, ask, right? Don't look at it as showing up and throwing up and, trying to
Hoping it
monetize
sticks.
every angle, right? You know what I
Yep.
mean? Like,
Yep.
just make sure that you have the right message, the right tone, is an extension of who you are as a person, because that's the worst thing that you want to do is pretend to be somebody that you're not, because that'll get stale and old real quick, and you'll end up hating it. And I'm saying this because in the correlation of representing yourself digitally, right? So
Yep.
posting and making sure that the content that you're providing has the same tonality and voice, that is an extension of who you are as a person, aka personal brand, right? Um, yeah,
Got
I,
it.
I I don't think there's too much more as far as like just be open. Make sure that you're being accessible, right? Like you're not bigger
Mhm.
than brand that you are, right? As far as who you are and how you got there. But yeah, I think those key nuggets. And again, if you have any questions, comments, or just want to continue the conversation with Jason and I, we're always available. You can reach us through the Hustle Mode podcast, Hustle Mode underscore podcast on Instagram, or connect with our LinkedIn individually, um, and we'd be happy to engage. But without any further ado, folks, I just want to make sure that you find these episodes quite valuable, and we're delighted again that you've spent your dear time with us. This channel is really a content series designed to give entrepreneurs, business leaders, marketers, influencers, and culture shapers insight to what they'd be thinking in order for them to take action. We appreciate you joining us along this journey. Until next time, keep your eyes on the prize, stay focused, and know that the best is yet to come. Hustle.
And